the most common questions I get asked by statistics students when learning the topic of z-scores is how to know whether to use the body or the tail of the unit normal table to figure out the probability of selecting a particular individual. For example, if a question were to ask, what's the probability of randomly selecting an individual with a height less than 5'2", if the mean height is 5'8", with a standard deviation of 2 inches. I just made those numbers up. I have no idea if that's even close to accurate. So the question is, do you use the body or the tail to find that value? Most students grasp that the first thing you're going to have to do is find the z-score for the height that you're interested in, but then they don't know what to do next. And the question I get asked is, oh, do I use the words less than or greater than to tell me where I should look? If it says greater than, should I look in the body? If it says less than, should I look in the tail? And that would not be a good way of doing it, because really what you should be looking for is not, does it say greater than or less than? You should be looking for, how does the z-score that you're being asked about, or the raw score that you're being asked about, how does it compare with the mean? So, for example, if you're being asked what's the probability of randomly selecting an individual with a height less than 5'2", well, you have to think about, all right, well, how does 5'2" compare with the mean? Is it greater than the mean? Is it less than the mean? Picture in your mind, or even better, sketch out a bell curve and kind of mark off approximately where 5'2" would fall. And even without doing that, you would realize if the mean is, I think I said 5'8", 5'2" is below the mean. So if you look at everybody who is lower than that, who's shorter than that, you're going to be looking at the tail. Take a moment, sketch it out, and you're going to see that. So you would be looking at the tail, which is the smaller part of the curve. If you were being asked, in that kind of situation, what's the probability of selecting an individual with a height greater than 5'2", sketch it out, shade in the area of the curve you're talking about, and it would obviously be the body that you need to look in for the proportion. But where it gets a little bit counterintuitive is if you're asked a question like, what's the probability of randomly selecting an individual from the population with a height less than 6 feet tall? Well, you know that the mean is 5'8". Yeah, I think that's what we said. So put a line, put a mark on the bell curve and see, where does 6 feet fall approximately? And obviously, again, you don't even need to sketch it out. In this case, it's so obvious. It is greater than the mean. So if you were to shade in everything that's shorter than that, you'd be shading in the bigger part of the curve, the body. So that's the way you should do this. Always sketch out the bell curve, put a mark where you're talking about, shade in the area you're being asked about, and just see, did you shade in the greater area of the curve or the smaller area of the curve? The thing to look at is not, does the question ask you greater than or less than? The thing to look at is, how does your z-score or raw score compare with the mean? And then see if the question is asking you greater than or less than.